Keeping up with the Joneses. Now, that was a phrase from back in my day, maybe even before my day. And it has to do with comparing your life and your situation to others to make yourself feel good, to give yourself value so you know you're doing okay. Terrible thing to do. And even at an early age, I was getting trapped in that, except for one man who gave me one example that changed everything for me. Give me 120 seconds and I'll tell you about this guy.
Welcome to Gen X Slices.
So I was living in the San Fernando Valley. I was working at U-Haul, 7-Eleven company. I was in my early 20s. This guy was in his 40s. And I befriended this guy and his wife and his kids. And just, as friends became part of his life for my part. And he had probably the most average middle-class life going on you'd ever seen. He lived in a rented house until the day he died. He drove used cars until the day he died. He probably didn't have a lot of money in his bank account when he passed away. And yet he was probably the happiest guy I'd ever seen in my entire life. I'm sure he had troubles. I'm sure he had things in his marriage and his kids and I'm sure his life wasn't perfect. But this guy was absolutely content with what he could afford and what he had. It was good enough. It was good enough for him. We used to have barbecues at his house, and his concrete deck, his patio, had big cracks in it. His barbecue tilted, leaned to one side. I remember it. His chairs were all mismatched. It didn't matter. None of that mattered to him. And you know what? His house was the place everybody wanted to be. And it wasn't because he had this big, huge, overwhelming personality. He didn't. Quite the opposite. He just smiled all the time and was happy to have people over. He was happy with his wife. He was happy with his kids going to school and graduating. He was happy with his job at U-Haul. He was happy renting that house. He truly was content with what he had in life. I don't know what his secret was. I really wish he had been able to put it into words. We did talk about it. But I will tell you, through his example and me paying attention and remembering him all these years later, I was able to take something from that and put myself in check quite often, to where I'd look around and if I get frustrated at what people had, something new or something nice or something better, more money, doing vacations and getting a little bit upset at myself or feeling sorry for myself or whatever you want to call it. And I was able to remember this guy and put myself in check and go, my life's not that bad. In fact, if I'd quit pressing myself over these things, and it's nice to have goals and it's nice to achieve, but if I'd quit pressing myself, I was actually very happy once I allowed myself to be. Once I let myself be okay with the things that I had, the wife that I had, the house, the kids. It just, once I said that, this is fine. What are you doing? The same way that guy did. He was fine with his life and where it was. And I'm sure he always tried to do a little more and get a little more, try to get a little bit ahead. Natural. Got to have goals, got to try to achieve with that. I'm good with that. But he did it in such a way that he was perfectly content if he didn't go any further in life. He was content with what he had, and he was genuinely happy. And I wish I could achieve his level of happiness. I probably never will, but I am happy with my life. I'm happy with my wife and my kids. I'm happy with my pickup truck and the house I live in. If nothing ever changed for me, if nothing ever got better from this point, and everybody around me got better, got bigger, went on, I'm fine. But I never would have felt that way if it wasn't for that guy and his example. His name was Tim, and he worked for U-Haul in the mid-'80s. And he was a friend of mine. And I miss him, but I miss the lessons in happiness he could have taught me even more. Just couldn't get him to put it into words. That's it. Just 2 minutes so you can understand where I was at. Maybe this will help you too.